Alright, family, here we go. We're continuing our wonderful review, nerding out session, overall deep dive into this biography concerning Thomas Jefferson, who was a brilliant man. We learned something quite interesting that I don't think anybody really realized. Jefferson was 32 years old when he was hitting on a girl named Catherine Kitty Floyd, who was the daughter of the New York Congressman William Floyd. She was 15 at the time. So, how the cultures change. How the cultures change. I don't think a lot of people knew that. And it's a little weird because his wife has only been dead for, I think, not even 2 years yet, it appears. In addition to spending time among colleagues old and new, Jefferson took detailed notes on a secret journal of foreign affairs, kept by Charles Thomson. Okay, Charles Thomson, new guy, don't know who he is. The Secretary of the Continental Congress. Okay, so who was Charles Thomson? Well, he was the Secretary of the Continental Congress. Jefferson studied the diplomatic correspondence between Congress and Benjamin Franklin in France, John Jay in Spain, and John Adams in Holland. Okay, here we go. Yes, I know that Benjamin Franklin went to France, but here we have John Jay went to Spain. John Adams went to Holland. How cool is that? He reviewed instructions to commissioners to foreign states and the appointments of envoys to Vienna, Russia, Prussia, and Tuscany. Ooh, Tuscany. Italianos, they want to help the Americans. He read Madison's paper, Observations Relating to the Influence of Vermont and the Territorial Claim on the Politics of Congress, and consider documents related to Spanish-American disputes over lands east of the Mississippi. So notice this, the Spanish-American disputes. So Spain was like, yo, we want this land east of the Mississippi. And they're like, nope, sorry, we're gonna have to go to war over that. Well, at least fight over it. See, a lot of people forget that the tribes had the British vying for them, the French, and clearly now the Spanish. So the Native Americans, they had a lot of different empires they could have sided with. Attuned to how others saw the world and understanding that most of them saw it with themselves at the center, Jefferson reached out to his future colleague John Jay, then an American diplomat in Europe. Okay, so John Jay, yes, he's gonna go to Spain though too. And Spain is in Europe. Had I joined you at a more earlier period, I am sure I should not have added to the strength of the commission, and coming in at the 11th hour, I can propose no more than to avoid doing mischief. Coming in, oh, that's cool. Coming in late. He's like, well, I can't do a bunch, but I can just not bring in problems. It was a disarming note, designed to allay any jealousies or annoyances at the late arrival of a new diplomat. So notice that. So he's saying, oh, I'll just avoid doing mischief, so that hoping that no one would get annoyed or jealous of him entering into the scene when most of heavy hitting is not in its prime, but there's still tension, right? Jefferson was taking care to cultivate those around him, and those above him too. He wrote George Washington an integrating letter. Washington's preeminence in the life of the nation was clear. In war, Jefferson had maintained the most cordial of relations with him. So Jefferson and George Washington obviously having a relationship, nothing that we wouldn't expect. At the possible approach of peace, he wanted to make himself pleasant to Washington and perhaps useful. He offered Washington my individual tribute to your excellency for all you have suffered and all you have effected for us. Wow, so notice this. So Jefferson is telling him, hey, you've suffered a lot for us, for the country, and I commend you for it. Then came news that concluded Jefferson's mission before it had begun. Jay, the incumbent American representative in France, had completed a draft of the Treaty of Paris with Great Britain. The document officially ended the Revolutionary War. Here we go! So John Jay, he finished the draft of the Treaty of Paris with Great Britain, and it helped end the Revolutionary War. Look at that. The text of the pact was en route to the United States, where the Congress would have to ratify it. Jefferson returned to Virginia, a reluctant private citizen once more, yet made his ambitions clear to James Madison. So it's like, hey, I didn't get to do it. John Jay kind of got the glory, but people are still recognizing, him as a leader and powerful figure during this time. He wanted to be in the action again. Should the call be made on me, which was sometimes the subject of our conversations, Jefferson wrote, he would enthusiastically return to the national stage. So he wants back in on that action. Remember how he was, thinking, should I stay out or should you go in? Clearly he chose go all in, right? It did not take long. On Friday, June 6, 1783, Jefferson was elected to the Congress. Edmund Ralph's report of the news to Madison was succinct. Quote, Mr. Jefferson was placed at the head of the delegation, not without his approbation. Jefferson had been without a public position for less than a month. Look at that! So it didn't even take a month for him to get a new spot. So they're like, hey, come be in Congress, brother. The Congress to which Jefferson was elected was the only institution of national government created by the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so the Articles of Confederation created this Congress, and it's the only one of national government at this time, and Jefferson is now a part of it. It was an inherently weak body. There was neither a separate executive nor a judicial branch, only the Congress. A state could not be represented without 2 members. A majority of 9 of the 13 states had to agree on most large questions, limiting the government's effectiveness. Okay, limiting the government's effectiveness. Even if there were a quorum present and an agreement about major issues, the Congress had little power. Ooh, Congress having little power. Man. The power that they had then versus today, I mean, it's so different than what it was. That's why it's so brilliant to read about, no matter which country you come from, reading about how your country got there. It could not tax, regulate national trade, or create a military, though it was authorized to declare war. I mean, they're supposed to declare war before you can go to war and prove war, but troops get sent all the time without congressional approval. There was no means of enforcement. The states were essentially sovereign nations, which left the national government ill-equipped to create coherent foreign and commercial policies that might strengthen the young country. So contrast that to the Federalist Papers, right? What did he say? The national government was ill-equipped to create foreign and commercial policies that would help strengthen the young nation. So remember when we're reading how the founders were clearly stating in the Federalist Papers, which is dealing with this time period right then, is that the Confederacy is insufficient to support the Union because they cannot rally up and muster up enough forces to take on a foreign power if they're all squabbling over each other, being envious and only caring about their specific geographical location. You need to be united as one solid force and push it back, and then have a common document to unify you thereof, right? The year 1783 had much in common with 1774. It was a time of twilight, an hour when the answers to great questions were unclear. In 1774, the issues of war. In 1783, it was peace, or more precisely, whether Americans could emerge from the conflict and govern themselves as a sovereign power. I mean, right? How do you do it? You always have to be asking that question. I don't think that question ended there. And even if you know the answer, you still have to maintain that power, right? Beginning with Benjamin Franklin's 1775 proposed for an Articles of Confederation, Jefferson had been thinking about the practicalities of government at the national level. He served on the committee to consider Franklin's paper and was appointed to another panel in 1783 to devise a visible head of government during vacations of Congress. Visible head of government during vacations of Congress. Congress shouldn't even have vacations, I think. They should not get any day off. We should be hard on them. Dishwashers, janitors, landscapers, butchers, slaughterhouse workers. So many more people work harder than them. There should be no vacation for them. No paid vacation while we have to wake up every morning to work. No. The result was a committee of the states. Committee of the states. So the committee of the states will be the visible head during vacations of Congress. And Jefferson was present advocate of more rather than less central control. So Jefferson is for central control. More central control than less. Well, this just makes me want to say no vacations for Congress. Right now they're trying to go on Congress without passing a virus relief bill.